Today's talk is titled Making Millions of People Happy, to be delivered by Andrew Boyd Goodrich. Andrew's first paid job was making $55 a week at a summer camp in the Sierra Nevada mountains. For close to 40 years since, he has worked his way up in the field of outdoor education and camping and has been the executive director of Camp Ocean Pines since 2018. Andrew is the vice president of the Association of Environmental and Outdoor Education, a statewide nonprofit committed to advancing meaningful outdoor engagement experiences for people of all ages and especially kids. He's the president-elect of the Rotary Club of Cambria and the treasurer for its fundraising arm, the Rotary Club of Cambria Foundation. He enjoys watching 49ers football with his younger son, Gavin, laughing at truly silly movies with his older son, Brendan, and wine tasting with his wife, Lisa. Andrew.
So first I just want to point out that I love coming to church ceremonies to do religious karaoke, basically, which is always great to do that in a community. That's basically what we're doing. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for having me here. I'm really honored and privileged to be here with you. And first, I want to express just gratitude for being here and sharing this miraculous time with you. And I'm going to go back and see all those stars. Yeah. In the vastness of space and time across this universe, this collection of atoms, this collection of molecules and cells has never existed till now in this room and will never exist again. That's truly miraculous. And I'm honored to share this miraculous moment with you, because we will never have it again. So thank you for sharing it with me. Today I'm talking about make millions of people happy. My name is Andrew. Just so you know, my talk today is not about Camp Ocean Pines per se. I will reference it because it's an important part of my life mission here to make millions of people happy, because it is my life mission. Make millions of people happy. I want to acknowledge I did steal this life mission from one of the great American philosophers, Mr. Kermit the Frog. I apologize for the digitized picture. When you transfer or email it to someone else who then transfers to someone else and it goes through 8 different iterations, it becomes digitized. But we can all tell it's Kermit, right? You can tell it's Kermit the Frog. Kermit the Frog spoke the line, "Make millions of people happy," in the original Muppet movie from 1979. So I stole that from a great movie and a great philosopher. In fact, Kermit is so important to me. My one and only tattoo that I got the day before my 50th birthday on my left shoulder is Kermit the Frog, and you can see Kermit helping to get a booster shot a couple years ago. So that's when I took that picture. When I talk about millions of people happy today, I want to emphasize my goal is not that millions. I'm not trying to quantify this. It's the idea of the breadth and depth and the scope. What am I doing to bring more happiness to more people? And also, when I say happiness, I want to emphasize I'm not talking simply, or I should say exclusively, of joy and smiles and laughter. All those things are really, really important. And we all need more of that in our lives, and more people need that in their lives. For me, happiness is a deep concept that means, does each person have a sense of dignity? Are they treated with respect? Do they have a sense of safety and belonging in the community in which they live? Do they have access to quality education, a home, good nutrition? Can they access public and green spaces? Can they access libraries and actually have a desire to go to libraries? Do they have access to the political system and whatever that means for them? Do they have access to the economic structures? And can they navigate the economic structures so that they can be happy, so that they can experience joy? It's very, very important. And I do want to point out, I have an agenda today, which is that I have a pretty big mission to make millions of people happy. I need help with this. So I am recruiting today for you to be my happiness minions, to go out in the world and bring and spread more happiness and have more happiness in your own life, because it's very, very important. So as a way of introduction, I also want to back up. By the way, I grew up in the UU community in Sacramento. a community that's still thriving up in Sacramento. I hadn't been back in that building till 2 years ago for my dad's celebration of life, but it was nice to return back into that space. And it was such an important space to me. I mean, it's the first time that I probably saw some of those symbols and learned about other faith traditions and other ways to be on this planet. It's probably where I first sang along to some Pete Seeger songs. I'm pretty sure I sang in the UU community. It's where I heard readings from Winnie the Pooh and The Little Prince and other forms of great literature that inform our lives. And also I learned about these guys, narwhals, basically unicorns of the sea, which are real creatures. And like that magic of discovery and learning, which is actually part of happiness. I remember distinctly in the childcare section, there was this big poster of all these marine mammals, and I'm like, what is that? Like, how cool was that at age 4 to see something like that in your life and be experienced to the magic? A little dopamine hit, basically, of pleasure and happiness at age 4. But before we go on, I do need, and talk about happiness, I want to take a detour into darkness, unfortunately, because happiness exists in the face of and in the presence of, unfortunately, a lot of dis-ease and disease and pain. And I'm just going to throw some unfortunate statistics up on the board here. 22 is the hottest year on record until 23 beat it. Gun violence is a scourge in our society. However you might feel about gun control, Second Amendment, I don't mean, that's not about that. But nonetheless, gun violence is a real thing that we're confronting in our society. It is now the leading cause of preventable death for youth in America. The leading cause of preventable death in America is gun violence. Our friends, our neighbors, our family members, our loved ones who are transgender are 10 times more likely to attempt suicide than the rest of the population. And that says so much about them not having a sense of belonging, being given a sense of dignity and respect in our society, of how much that actually they want to remove, they feel they need to remove themselves from it. I also want to think about, we have this, war going over in Gaza right now, and all the pain and suffering that's going on there. And if you're like me, you've probably wrestled with very complex ideas of identity and self-identity and self-protection and not have the right answers to this because people a lot smarter than me have wrestled with these questions, okay? But also how much that pain has come back into our own culture, not just spiritually and kind of psychically, but practically, that because of that war, there's been a rise of anti-Semitism in this country, a rise of anti-Arab and anti-Islam sentiment in this country, and actually actions taken against our friends and neighbors who happen to be of those faith or religious communities. And so that even things happening far away are affecting us. Sorry about that detour, but it's really important. Because part of happiness is seeing and being seen. So we're going to do a little exercise for a moment. So those who are at Zoom, you're going to do this at home, but you can do it here in the room as well. And in just a moment, you're either going to consider your own eyes, or you're going to turn to someone close to you and look into their eyes. Okay, so go ahead and do it. Think about your own eyes, or look into other people's eyes. Okay, so what colors do you see in their eyes? What's the color of their eyes?
Mine are green.
We have green, okay, I'm sorry. What do we have? Some other colors, eye colors we have. Okay, hazel, nice. We have blue, I have blue eyes. So I want to consider, and even up on the screen here, when we do that and I ask the question, what color are their eyes? What a limiting question that is. We have, I don't know, hazel, but also black and white, a little bit of pink.
Yeah.
And we are taught when we ask that question to ignore the majority of that person's eyes. That's considered irrelevant information. And actually the DMV forces us to make a choice about our eye color, and yet we're ignoring so much of that individual. And how representative is that how we move through life so much? We see someone with a bumper sticker of whatever political stripe, and that then classifies them in our eyes, in our mind, of the type of person they are, right? A few years ago, my wife and I were driving and our car overheated and we had to pull over. And the first car that pulled over, the number of bumper stickers for, I'll just go a little tangent here, of representing a political party and ideology that just in some ways infuriates me, pulled over and helped me. If I was just stuck behind him in traffic, I would be saying under my breath, and sometimes not under my breath, things about that individual, even though I'd never met them. And yet, he was the person who stopped and helped me. Okay. So much of our life is we see one thing or we focus on one thing, and it gets in the way of us seeing them fully, but also our own happiness, because we've now classified them and identified, I'm only going to identify this person or encounter this person in this one way, and not seeing them for the fullness of the person they are. By the way, that exercise, that was from my oldest son, Brendan. Some of you met him last week. He and I visited. My oldest son, Brendan, is autistic. And when he was much younger, we were working on, if you've dealt with autistic people in your lives, they literally think differently. And there's great lessons to be learned from them and with them because they think and they encounter the world differently. And early on, we were doing things like, so Brendan, what is that thing? Oh, that's a tree. What are those? Those are clouds. What color are our dad's eyes? Black and white and blue. And like in that moment, my head exploded of like, wow, what a profound, because he sees the world differently. He saw more of me than I even saw in myself in that moment, which I thought was a great lesson that he gave me. So you can see I like to use metaphors. Another one is, if you're like me, are you currently infuriated by you go into the bathrooms that have the automated sensors and you do this? And you do this a whole bunch and no water comes out? And you're wondering, if you're like me, first of all, you go, that's something broken, but then you start to have those existential questions like, do I not exist? Is it not seeing me? Maybe that's just me, but like I go dark really quickly. I'm like, why is it not seeing me? And how important that is of like not being seen, right? That's such an important aspect of moving through life. Going back to our trans friends, so much of that is not being seen, and therefore they go to a space where therefore I need to remove myself. Okay. So then all this is a way of introducing of what it means to be happy and to bring happiness, to live in and push out and create more happiness. Okay. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about my personal things that I'm doing regarding happiness, and maybe there's some lessons for you. So first of all, I want to acknowledge all of you because studies have shown that just being in a faith community like this one, you're more likely to have higher health metrics and happiness metrics than the rest of the general population. So good job, happiness minions. You're already taking your first step to being part of a faith community in whatever stripe, literally just being amongst other people, celebrating and being in spirit in whatever form it looks like, gives you more happiness and gives other people more happiness. And then, of course, when you leave this room, you're bringing that energy back out with you to other people you just encountered. If you go get coffee or hot chocolate immediately afterwards, that energy is going with you because you've already had your happiness index raised, which is really important. Nature is an important aspect of health and happiness, okay? And making sure that you have access to green space and to trees and to hearing birds singing brings you joy and brings other people joy. Again, studies have demonstrated this. There was a very famous study of a hospital, a maternity ward in a hospital. I believe this is in England. And it was a long hallway with rooms on both sides of this maternity ward. Okay? So all the women in there basically have the same basic medical situation, the same nurse rotations, the same set of doctors, the same nutrition, all the different things that they would need. But yet one side of the hallway looked out on a parking lot. The other side looked out on a public park. The women on that side had faster recovery rates, just because they could see trees. And it shows us how important of just what we need in our own life. But think about what that means for the choices we make in the political and social sphere. Am I supporting making sure that more people have more access to open space? Am I, through my dollars, through my votes, through my volunteering, through just my advocacy, am I making sure that other people can go to Fiscalini or can go to green space or our state parks or our national parks? Okay? Or just a little pocket park in Slow. If you've ever been in some of those parks, you see that those are families out there playing Frisbee and having picnics and therefore being healthier and happier. And such, that's actually translated as mentioned. I actually volunteer for a statewide organization to bring hopefully more environment to more kids. I'm up in the upper corner up there with some other cool volunteers statewide. hopefully bringing more environmental education to more people, because it's very, very important. And in my professional life, my one and only reference to my professional life, we try to create a space at Camp Ocean Pines where we take our jobs really, really seriously. We don't take ourselves very seriously. Giving kids in particular, but also families, adults, a safe place to be themselves and to see a new version of themselves, that's really important, okay? And in my job as the executive director, I don't get to work with kids and teenagers very often. In fact, I always tell parents, like, how's my son doing? I'm like, unless he's been hurt or has gotten in trouble, I don't see your kid. That's not how this works. But who I do get to work with is a lot of young adults. I get to hire a lot of 18 and 19-year-olds, sometimes for their first job. So one of the ways that I try to practice happiness in this world is make it the best job they've ever had. To treat them with respect, to actually honor things like overtime laws, which too many employers don't. I want them to go and then work at Target and go, you know what? I worked at a place that was literally a 24/7 operation and I got more breaks. What's going on with that? Because I want them to have a voice and to know that, you know what? You have a right to work in a space that treats you with respect. Now, to work you hard and hold you accountable for your performance, but that's part of treating you with respect, because we want you to bring your full best self into that situation, okay? That's one of the ways I try to practice happiness as a professional, is make people understand you are treated, you are worth something to me and to this organization and to the people we're trying to serve. One of the ones I really try to practice in terms of my happiness, I invite you to, is just how am I giving myself and other people grace? Am I being forgiving just as I move through life? And being grateful as I move through life? If a guy cuts me off in traffic, is my first reaction one of anger and hatred and resentment? Or is it, he probably didn't even know he cut me off. You know what? Life goes on. I got much better fish to fry for myself, so I need to give myself some grace in that moment, but also let it go. Or if you're in a coffee shop and it's just taking forever to get your hot chocolate, are you sitting there, am I sitting there in a space of, where's my hot chocolate? Where's my hot chocolate? Where's my hot chocolate? Where's my hot chocolate? Or am I just waiting? Because I don't know if you've been behind that counter, but trust me, they're probably more stressed, and me projecting at them is not helping them get my hot chocolate out any quicker. In fact, they'll probably resent me and they'll give me something bad in my hot chocolate. So I don't want that either. But how am I projecting grace, right? And the same sort of way, if I cut someone off in traffic, I would like them to give me grace as well. And if you really want to do something to bring more happiness, you can do something that I just did this morning, which I do all the time, for just bring more silliness into the world. So when I go into a coffee shop like Starbucks and they ask for your name for your order, the name I give is Bubbles. Now, invariably, I get a reaction like that, which is kind of a little chuckle of like, that was an interesting choice, okay? But in that moment, they've been working hard. They've been there since 4 a.m. making lattes for people who don't really care. They just want their latte, right? Like, give them a little grace, a little fun in that moment. Here's the great thing. It sometimes goes, I've had people go, Bubbles, that's great. And they turn to all the coworkers, this guy's name is Bubbles. And they get so excited about this. I've made their day because I just gave them a silly name. By the way, it's also practical. My order's never mixed up with anybody else's. No one else says Bubbles. Now you might use it, but pick your own silly name. But like there's other Andrews who sometimes order the same drink and they sometimes take my drink accidentally, right? But no one has Bubbles except me. By the way, if you want to do this, you want to take it to the next level, make dinner reservations under Bubbles. You really want to go big? Admiral Bubbles. And heck, your reservation under Admiral Bubbles, I did that one time and my wife, I thought was going to kill me when I did that, but there we go. So, but while you're doing all these things for happiness, in terms of my examples, there's also the part of this, is that we got to give ourselves some grace about these things. This is big, this is hard. I'm actually talking about changing the structural nature of society, okay? Of like, how are we treating other people? Are we changing the economic systems that we live in? But at the same time, you know what? I can't do it all today, okay? In fact, I can't do it all today or tomorrow, but I can. So how am I bringing more happiness today, at least? Despite the structural oppression, I can still make a difference. I can still make a difference. And here's a small example. If one person in a transgender person's life uses their accepted pronouns, their incident of trying to attempt suicide is cut in half. It used to be 10 times, now it's 5 times. Still an unfortunate number. If one person, just one person in their life uses their pronouns of preference, it changes their incidence of trying to attempt suicide. That's pretty powerful. And me saying bubbles might have been the best thing that person experienced that day. Me not honking my horn at that guy who cut me off might be something that makes his life different that day. We don't know, but it can. And those small incidences of happiness and spreading happiness makes a lot of difference. So last I'm going to end about bow ties, because it's something I care deeply about. And it is actually part and parcel of trying to make millions of people happy for me, because there are some essential metaphors in wearing bow ties that I want to share with you all today. By the way, this plays itself out, and it's very important. So the bow tie, first of all, one of the great things about bow ties is it brings people right to your face, because they see the bow tie and they look up. So, which is so great, because I'm immediately inviting them to engage me and see the colors in my eyes. How cool is that? Also, bow ties are a conversation starter. 3 different people this morning of the 20 people here said, hey, great bow tie. Yeah. It's also sometimes they can be a backhanded, really, a bow tie? But it's a conversation starter. Hey, do you really tie that yourself, or is it a clip-on? I'm like, no, I tie it myself. And so you can literally start conversations with strangers because you're wearing a bow tie. One of the cool things about bow ties, and it's an important metaphor for me in life, is part of the aesthetic of bow ties is they don't have to be perfect. If you were some of the men in the room, if you worked in the professional sector and you had to wear regular ties, actually having the perfect knot like the Windsor was actually important, or otherwise you weren't tying it properly. Whereas bow ties, part of the aesthetic, it could be a little off, it could be off sideways, and it actually still works because that's actually the aesthetic of a bow tie. So not having to worry about perfection all the time. By the way, I am obsessive, so I did tighten it and straighten it quite a bit, but I also had to let it go at some point and just get up here and talk to you all, so it's okay. And here's my favorite part. You're in great company if you wear bow ties. You too can be as cool as Sammy Davis Jr. or Frank Sinatra. Late night at a piano bar with a martini in your hand. Okay? And the great thing is you untie it, and you look even cooler. How cool is that? Right? So, I just want to thank you for letting me talk today about my life mission of making millions of people happy. I encourage you and I cajole you to be one of my minions and go out and be happy and spread happiness, because we all need more happiness. And we all should be more like Kermit the Frog. Thank you very much.